Hey guys, Coach Ryan here. I wanted to get into a little bit about food quality today. Whether you're doing a nutrition challenge, whether you're trying to drop body weight, whether you're trying to gain body weight, or you're just in this whole thing for overall health, I kind of wanted to just give you my take on food choices and food quality. Okay, this has evolved a lot over the years. We've learned a lot. My wife and I, as a family, have learned a lot over the past few years. I kind of wanted to start from a basis standpoint of the typical American diet. Okay, so we've got our typical American diet, which is pretty much uh, lots and lots of processed food, lots of quick foods, lots of carbohydrate laden foods, lots of foods that you can just grab and go. Okay, um, we kind of developed this idea, you know, without getting into too much history, but thousands and thousands of years ago of how do we get a lot of food that's super compact, that is a lot of energy stores for us and allows us to travel long distance and without having to find more food and enter carbohydrates. So now all of a sudden here we are in 2017 where we don't live in a society that there's ever really a food scarcity and we always have access to food and no one is ever really that hungry where we have to like store food like a bear does in the wintertime to hibernate. Okay, so we don't need to do all these things like spike insulin and store body fat and hold on to this stuff for a rainy day or a long winter or a hibernation or a famine, right? But instead we're still doing it as a society. There's a whole other aspect we can get into with the typical American diet with being addicted to these foods, but I know that John's got a lot more about that that he's going to give you later on in another video. So I kind of just want to talk about typical American diet and how you've got that over here and how that is completely different from the real food that we should be eating. Okay, so first I'm going to touch on a bunch of different diet plans, like diets that maybe have books about them or gurus have maybe kind of talked about, or people feel the need to kind of label what they eat as I am a whatever kind of diet is. Okay. Um, paleo is a huge one, especially if you've involved in functional fitness or CrossFit for any series of time. You've heard of paleo. Paleo is an interesting one because I like paleo. I like the idea that it says eat real food. They talk about meat, they talk about veggies, and they put other constraints on it. And I think that there's been a big push from marketing where they're trying to like take this idea where it's good for you to eat real clean foods without packaging and then package it and give it to you so they can sell it to you and find a way to sell it cheap and then enter paleo brownies and paleo cake and paleo cookies, and those are brownies and cake and cookies. I don't care what kind of package you put on them, they're still snacks. Okay, they're still not real food. Real food is, hey, I got a plate full of, here's a little bit of meat, here's a whole lot of veggies, maybe a little fruit sprinkled in there, some good healthy fats. Okay, I talked about that before. And if I could turn and hand that to my grandmother, okay, when she was my age, and she was able to take that and turn a hand to her grandmother when she was my age, right? And you go down the line 3 or 4 generations, and all of a sudden that woman could still look at that and be like, hey, thanks, that's food. I appreciate that. But take a paleo brownie, take the wrapper off it, put it on a plate, and you go back 1 or 2 generations, and they're going to seriously question why they're handing something brown and squishy and who God knows what this thing is. Okay, it's not identifiable as real food. It is to us because we see it every day. Okay, so that's why I like paleo. Okay, um, then there's vegan. Okay, I think vegan and paleo are very, very similar. Paleo is not quite as restrictive, okay, because it allows some other things in there, like there's some meats and there's some other things that vegans don't eat. But you take things like that. You take like keto. Keto says eat good quality, high fats. Um, Things like avocado. And I guess what I'm getting at here is you take all of these ideas and you roll them into one, and you take what they have in common and what works well for you, and you name the diet after yourself. Okay. Hey, you know what? You know what I like about keto? And I'm actually talking about myself right now. You know what I like about keto? I like the idea that I'm eating high fats. I do really well with high fats. I think that's fantastic. I love bulletproof coffee in the morning. I love coconut oil, grass-fed butter. My meats are full fat. Lots of eggs, things like that, avocado, almonds, those are all put into our diet. But you know what I don't like about keto? I don't like the restrictive having to count and stay underneath a certain amount of carbs. That doesn't work well for me. Paleo, what I like about paleo, whole, clean foods. So we stick to a whole lot of clean foods. I like that paleo and vegan are plant-based diets. They say fill up your plate with vegetables. I think that's a fantastic thing also. So you know what I did? I invented the Ryan Parr diet. And you know what I say to do? Eat a whole lot, as many good, clean vegetables as possible. And by good and clean, I mean not, super packaged, super processed vegetables that come with a whole bunch of like salt and cheese sauce on them. Those aren't veggies. Okay, something that you can eat possibly raw, make a salad. So I'll give you what I had for lunch today. This is pretty exemplary of what my diet consists of. So last night, my wife and I made in a crock pot, it was a roast of a grass-fed cow, and that sat in that roast overnight and fell apart. And what we did today is we put leftovers of grass-fed beef on top of a kale salad with cut up fresh peppers with a little bit of whole fat Greek yogurt and a little bit of hot sauce just to flavor the whole thing, and that went on top of it. And that's pretty exemplary of how I eat, because I take a little bit of, is it paleo? Sure. It's got some aspects of keto? Sure. Vegans say, hey, eat whole, clean stuff. Obviously, I'm eating meat, so it's not vegan, but take a little bit of all of them, and I got the Ryan Parr diet. Okay? So what you need to do is develop your own diet. Develop something that, hey, you know what? I like this food, I like that food, I like these food, and don't pull, the Pop-Tarts and the soda and the sugar drinks and say, hey, I like all this, check out my diet. No, I mean, I talked about, there was a guy named Abel James who's got something that he made up his own also. He called it the Wild Diet. And he pretty much has this acronym I mentioned before, RAW, R-A-W, recently, alive, and well. Okay, so he says he was alive at one point, meat and vegetables, sure. Well, and that's where you get into food quality. So that's the biggest takeaway of what I want to touch on today is food quality. Where does your food come from? Are you buying things that are advertised everywhere on the side of a bus, on kids' cartoons, commercials, things like that? Are you eating things that come with a mascot on the box? Or are you eating things that can't be packaged or aren't packaged or come from the produce section? They got to look up the number for it. Or are you going to a farm somewhere in the outskirts and paying them for half a cow and storing it in your freezer because you know it came from a really good source? Okay, the issue people come into sometimes when they're looking for really good food quality is it's expensive. Okay, you're going to pay for it, but that's quality. Quality costs money. Okay, you wouldn't come into a facility like we have here and expect to do $9.99 a month and still receive quality coaching and quality equipment and it's, if you want something that is quality, you need to expect to pay for quality. Okay, and the same holds true for food. So meat, good quality, grass-fed, pastured chicken and grass-fed beef is expensive. Eggs that come from pastured, happy chickens, they're expensive. Produce that is not mass manufactured full of pesticides, organic produce, is expensive. Okay, but we're talking about one of the fundamental things that you have to do as a human being. You have to eat. Okay, you don't have to have new Nikes. You don't have to drive a BMW. You don't have to have a 50-inch TV with 1,000 channels of cable. Okay, you will still survive if those things aren't there. What you do have to survive in the long term and thrive is food, and good quality food. So my whole takeaway message from this whole thing is food quality is super important. Don't nickel and dime over this is a paleo dessert, this is a gluten-free thing. Okay, ditch it all and just eat real food. Okay, they'll all fit into your numbers. I promise you, if you focus on eating tons of vegetables and put a little bit of protein on there and some good healthy fats, you're going to get where you want to be. Okay, you're going to have to fine tune eventually once you get closer and closer to your goal, but that's going to get you awfully close. And pay attention to food quality, and don't be afraid to prioritize some things in your life and pay for better quality food over, hey, I can feed a family of 9 off the dollar menu. Okay. As always, if you have questions, contact me at nutrition@crossfitmohawkvalley.com. And I promise I won't always be quite so serious about it. And I'm not going to yell at you if you come in and you tell me, hey, you know what, I had a bunless Big Mac today. How do I make that better? I'm not going to yell at you. I'll be like, hey, you know what? Let's explore some other options. Okay. Thanks for listening, guys. And until the next video, see ya.